So friends, let's take on 3 quick topics today. 1, could FBI Director Kash Patel ever testify in court? 2, when Donald Trump's DOJ officials ask career federal prosecutors to do something unethical, should they resign or should they wait to be fired? And 3, let's finish up with some points of light. Because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, this past weekend, I spoke at a conservative conference, a conference put on by an organization called Principles First. It's made up of Republicans, former Republicans, people who feel like the Republican Party have left them behind or that it is essentially dead at this point. It is a group of conservatives who, as the name of the organization suggests, have decided to put principles first, putting politics aside. And as you may know, I recently left MSNBC as a legal analyst after 6.5 years because I decided I was done preaching to the converted and I wanted to try as best I could to talk across the divide, right? Talk about the importance of the rule of law to, not only liberal or Democrat organizations or outlets, but Republican outlets and conservative organizations like Principles First. So I was thrilled when they invited me to speak about the importance of the rule of law to a healthy democracy. And I had the pleasure of being on a panel with 2 of my friends, Asha Rengappa and Frank Figluzzi. Both Asha and Frank are former FBI agents and officials. They were on the panel to talk about sort of the FBI perspective, where we are in the age of, a largely lawless Trump administration, how it's impacting the FBI, and I was there to talk about the impact of the Trump administration on the Department of Justice, United States Attorney's offices, and federal prosecutors. So what I'd like to do today is just play for you 3 clips that involve our discussion, Frank, Asha, and I at Principles First. And this first clip concerns the newly installed director of the FBI, Kash Patel. And there's something about Kash Patel that people may not know. This is not necessarily intuitive, but because some of what is in Kash Patel's background, he could never appear as a witness in federal court, in state court, in local court. He is essentially disqualified from ever appearing as a witness in any court proceeding. And in this first clip, I take on exactly why that is.
And where did most of the agents come from that worked January 6 cases? The Joint Terrorism Task Forces. So now you're telling those agents on JTTS, which literally keep us from a major terrorist attack every day, you're telling them you're under inquiry. I'm under inquiry. Yeah. What does that mean inside the FBI? You can't get promoted. You have to go tell the AUSA you work with, I'm under inquiry for an ethics allegation.
And can I
Can't
follow?
go on a stand.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Okay, if you can hand that off to me now for a minute, because if an agent is jammed up like that, as a prosecutor, I can't use that agent. Let me tell you a fun fact about Kash Patel. You never thought you'd hear those 2 things put in the same sentence. So, because the Colorado court in which Kash Patel testified in the Donald Trump insurrection litigation when the Colorado trial court judge ruled, of course Donald Trump engaged in insurrection, and the Colorado Supreme Court affirmed that ruling, and the U.S. Supreme Court didn't disavow it, didn't disagree with it, didn't vacate it, didn't touch it. So yeah, he's an adjudicated insurrectionist. He called as a defense witness Kash Patel. Kash Patel testified, and the judge concluded he was, quote, not a credible witness. What Frank just said about FBI agents having issues that preclude them from being used by prosecutors, the mother of all issues is a judicial finding that you are, quote, not a credible witness. I couldn't put Kash Patel on the stand in a simple assault case in the courts of Washington, D.C., because he would be cross-examined on, wait a minute, a judge found you are not a credible witness. So he would go on something called the Lewis list, which is a list of officers we can't put on the stand. And yet this man, who can't testify in a courtroom anywhere in the country, is going to be supervising special agents who are in courtrooms in the country every day, testifying, again, the legal upside down. And friends, this second clip tackles a question that I have gotten a lot in recent weeks. And the question is, when Donald Trump's corrupt DOJ officials ask a career federal prosecutor to do something that is unethical or unlawful or unconstitutional, should those career federal prosecutors resign, or should they stand strong and wait to be fired? Put another way, if they decide to resign, does that constitute obeying in advance? And is that a bad thing? The answer to this question, again, is not necessarily intuitive, but I do my best to sort of untangle the difficult circumstance of a prosecutor being put in that position. Do I resign, or do I wait to be fired? And here is the discussion we had on that topic.
So Glenn, I've been debating, so I don't know if people have seen my t-shirt. What's that? So I've been debating whether it's better for these people, be they agents, prosecutors, when the order comes, is it better to resign and do it publicly, because we've gotten some sunlight, right? With these letters that Danielle Sassoon and Denise Chung, they've laid bare what they're being asked to do. On the other hand, the goal here is to hollow out these agencies. The goal is to get these agents out, and who knows, maybe give all these January 6th defendants a badge and a gun. There is nothing stopping the Justice Department from doing that, and that will be your new FBI. So should they stay and wait to be fired and then, we have lawyers who are willing to work on this stuff, get them into court to justify the firing, et cetera, et cetera. What's the right way for these civil servants, these public servants, to fight? I don't know the answer.
As a general principle, we will not obey in advance, period. But I think I actually have a halfway decent answer for that question, and it is one of the questions I've been asked most often in recent weeks. So when you have all of these federal prosecutors who are asked to do something that is unethical, or directed by Beauvais or Ed Martin to do something that is unethical, they basically have two choices. One, they can offer their resignation, which, yes, seems like obeying in advance, or they can say, I'm not doing it, and in the next breath they get fired, they get wrongfully terminated. What are the implications of those two paths? If you offer a principled resignation, you draft a letter like Danielle Sassoon drafted, and like Hagan Scotton drafted, and like Denise Chung drafted, and how important have those letters become in the public dialogue? How important are those letters in exposing the corruption inside Donald Trump's Department of Justice? I think that is the best approach. Offer a principled resignation, put in writing for the American people to see what the hell is going on inside of the Department of Justice, because if you don't do that, what happens? You get fired in the next breath. Then that has a couple of consequences. One, you're going to spend the next year or two in court if you choose, fighting a wrongful termination. I don't wish that on anybody. And you can write a letter after you've been fired, and everybody's going to say, well, yeah, they were fired. Of course they're going to throw all this garbage in a letter, right? It's not worth the paper it's written on. I believe the principled resignation route is the better route, the better path to take for the ultimate health of our democracy. That's my opinion. And then, friends, no discussion of where we are today in this lawless Trump administration is ever complete without talking about, you guessed it, the points of light.
I'm going to let you have
Yeah,
the last
thanks,
word.
Frank, for
Okay.
scaring the bejesus out of everybody.
Okay, we got 1 minute left, and can you end on a high note?
Yeah, yes. Yes, that's a tough act to follow. Points of light. There are points of light out there. I believe the federal judiciary, the trial court judges, particularly up the street in Washington, D.C., they are loyal to the rule of law and the Constitution. And I don't look forward to the first vindictive, baseless, evidence-free prosecution that the Trump Department of Justice will bring. It's coming. But boy, when they try to bring it, they're going to get that vindictive prosecution crammed down their throats, figuratively speaking, by the trial court judges in Washington, D.C. Now, I'll set aside the Supreme Court for a minute, but the trial court judges around the country, even most of the Trump-appointed judges, just like when there were 60 election challenge cases filed back in 2020, what did we see? The federal trial court judges held strong, and I believe they're going to hold strong. Now, but what about if the administration doesn't comply with court orders? That's coming, because Donald Trump is dying to plunge us into a true constitutional crisis. Here's what I would offer. The United States Marshal Service, I worked with the men and women of the Marshal Service for decades. When they say they always get their man or their woman, they really do. They are a crack outfit. And the federal law, I think it's 28 U.S.C. 566B, for anybody scoring at home, says even though they're part of the Department of Justice, they're part of the executive branch, the U.S. Marshal Service shall enforce federal court orders and commandeer any assistance they need to make it happen. I believe the good men and women of the Marshal Service will abide by the law. They may end up having a corrupt leader. I don't know. I know Donald Trump just named somebody as the director of the Marshal Service. I believe the rank and file men and women of the FBI will not obey unlawful directives to open criminal probes without adequate predication. When I was in the Army, I was an Army JAG. You know what got drilled into my head in officer basic and at the JAG school, where they send us before they launch us out to our first assignment? You must obey lawful orders, but even more importantly, you must disobey unlawful orders. I believe there are more Mark Milleys in the military than there are Mike Flynns. And I think when this gets as ugly as it's going to get, where the rubber meets the road, is will the military hold strong, or will they bow down to a dictator and violate their oath to the Constitution? And I believe in Mark Milley's words that we do not show loyalty or fealty to a king or a dictator or a tyrant. We in the military show loyalty to the Constitution, and I don't think the military will obey unlawful orders. At least that is my fervent hope.
Great. Thank you both. Thanks all of you.
So friends, as you and I both know, those points of light are out there. And some of them are growing stronger. And it's our job, it's our responsibility, it's our mission to feed them, to prop them up, to support them, because we're going to need those points of light in this time of Trump-induced darkness, because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.